do you take the intimidating factor of a white sheet of paper and turn it into a completed comic book cover or any piece of art that's going to be on paper? And there's very few things that are very forgiving when you put a brushstroke in or a line that you didn't intend, especially with a pen or a multi-liner. The key to that is basically planning ahead as much as possible. So that would be the layout phase, the penciling phase. And even then, there's times when, in some of my previous videos, I would sit there and erase over and over again because I didn't know quite what I had in mind. So if given the opportunity and not so tight deadlines, I would like to spend more time in the layout phase, the penciling phase. But since I've gotten into this habit this past, I'd say almost 10 years now, where the deadlines are pretty much crammed as much as possible, and there's this tendency to want to draw as fast as I can and process as fast as I can, and I want to get to the end where I could add the detail and the piece is done and I'm happy with it and the client's happy with it. But that's rarely the case. It always feels like there's not enough time to finish something the way I want it to be finished. And I'm sure it's not a unique circumstance. I know a lot of artists that have that, need to finish things in a short amount of time. And I think that's the one thing I'd like to practice more of, because if, I plan my time well enough, then the piece is going to turn out the way I want it to, no matter what I'm drawing and how detailed it is and how, whether it's digital or on paper with watercolors and markers. And the more that I add into the piece, whether it be with the mediums, the more time and planning I have to have. Now, that doesn't always work out well with comic book deadlines, because that's the only kind of deadline that I'm used to, because it's so tight and you're pretty much involved in the first phase of the process. And then that includes the editors that have to see what you're doing, which I've mentioned previously, and they need to know what they're going to get at the end of the day. And then if it's interiors, there's letterists, there's dialogue that needs to be written and adjusted, and so on and so forth. And so it's a very involved process, and I'm still learning right now how to do that as best as I can with the amount of time that I have, without sacrificing too much of what I wanted to do with a piece. And so Lola since it was all done traditionally, it took a whole lot more planning, and I often would have pages that would fall short in that sense early on, where I added too much detail to certain panels or to certain pages, where by the time I was about ready to finish the book, it wouldn't turn out the way I wanted it to. And so after years of trying to figure it all out, it seems like it's working out the way that I'd like it to. That remains to be seen, since I'm already done with the series. But for future books, if I've learned as much as I think I have in the past 7 years, to put together the book the way I want it to. And I think until I've done that, I'm always going to have that itch to do it a certain way. And it's probably not going to be as hard as it seems, because I realize that there's some places where you could take, I wouldn't call them shortcuts, but you could probably compose it in a way where certain panels don't have to be so involved. Certain pages could be quiet moments, which in a story, of course, it's important to have quiet moments and moments that kind of speak out and jump out at you, because that's the balance, and the juxtaposition is what makes a story interesting. It's the things that are different that makes like a piece of art, kind of like music, or actually exactly like music, like the rhythm of a book or a cover or piece. It all needs to be cohesive at the end of the day. But that cohesion only happens when there is a balance between slow moments and fast moments, moments with a lot of excitements and moments with really not a lot going on. But I think because comic books are very short, or there's about 20 pages, every single page and every single panel should matter to some extent, even panels that are sometimes just a black box or a white box. They should matter in the grand scheme of things, and sometimes that puts a period on what's happening. I think out of all the covers I've done, this one I felt like I had enough time to kind of complete it the way I'd like it to for the most part. If I was given free reign and let's just say 5 whole days of nothing but this one cover, I'd probably mask off Lola and the foreground elements, and then airbrush the sky and stuff, and then maybe watercolors on the trees. And so I would add a lot more multimedia elements to it. I would probably add some gouache as well, because I love the texture and the way the colors look when it's all put together. So there's a lot of different layers to it. Taking all that into consideration, I think that's how I myself take the intimidating factor of a blank sheet of paper and am able to finish the work I intended on finishing in the beginning. It's that deadline, that need to draw, need to create, to finish something is why I don't even think putting something on paper is as hard as maybe it used to be when I kind of did it for fun myself. Personally, it made it so I would just noodle around with my piece and not finish it. But then again, I think I also knew early on that I wanted to draw comic books, so I would impose deadlines, maybe restrictions, and like focused hours of drawing. Sometimes I would have a subject matter I'd want to study and draw. Sometimes I didn't, but I always found something to create. And I would do it during times when I had a good span of an hour to draw when I was younger. And then as I got older, even if I had only 5 free minutes where I'm just kind of waiting around for something, I will pull out a piece of paper, a receipt, maybe a pen if I didn't bring any paper to draw with, and just kind of sketch on it, because my hands feel like they always have to be moving and constant. So I think the blank piece of paper, what used to be intimidating to me, is now something I find refreshing and a joy to look forward to. Now, of course, the intimidating factor now isn't the blank piece of paper as much as it's the things that I have to draw for work and the amount of time that I am given to work on it, whether or not it's enough time. Usually it's not enough time, but then at the end of the day, it's how I make a living now, and I still enjoy it, even with the tight deadlines. I think the thing that I wish I could probably reflect on and appreciate more is I'm never going to have enough time to do it the way I want to do it. So I have to do my best when I'm given that time to put out the best work I could possibly put out, because that's just the nature of the beast. And I think it's just finding the enjoyment in each and every aspect of it. And the challenge should be what I focus on and what brings me joy. But I know that there's still times when I can't possibly bring myself to enjoy every second of it, knowing in the back of my mind that I have all these pages, all these panels to draw, to ink, to write sometimes. But I have done it long enough now where I accept it more. But that's just part of being an artist and doing it day in and day out. That the journey, as you know, is supposed to be the most rewarding part of it. And we all have to adjust and learn how to do that with everything, but especially with art, since I'm pretty sure most of us started drawing and wanting to do this for a living and wanting to put our work out there because we love it and we enjoy it and we want to share it with the rest of the world.